Okay, so what we have here, this is a new welder out by Sefaspe, and it is a arc welder, aka stick welder. One of the older welding techniques out there that is actually still very commonly used for industry. Also, it's one of the welding techniques that can be applied on, say, farms, construction sites, skyscrapers, different things like that. Arc welding has a shielding material on the welding rod that can be used outside in reasonable wind. There you have rods that can handle contamination a lot better than a lot of the other welding techniques out there. It's not always the prettiest weld, and I'll say that is more dependent on the welding person, because there are union welders that we use at the nuclear plant that I work with that can stick weld artistically, like make it look like something that was TIG welded. You're not sure all the time what you're looking at. But Sefaspe asked me to look at this welder, do a couple videos on it. So I wanted to show it to you and talk about it. So it is a 110 and 220 volt welder. Excuse me. So it can work out of a standard wall outlet. These are 20 amp outlets. It'll work out of a 50 amp welder / compressor outlet. Gives you some options in the barn, in the field, on the job site, to be able to use different power sources, whatever is available to you. Let's see, here we got a manual and a silica pack. Okay, so all these newer welders, you might have seen some of my reviews last year looking at some of these new ones. They're getting smaller, they're getting lighter, more power efficient, in that my old transformer machines, they just draw massive power in to do the welding. The new machines, the inverter type machines, are able to do similar work at a much lower cost of electricity consumption. So they do give you an adapter here that you can plug your 50 amp 220 into, and drops down to 110. Most of these welders, and I believe this one included, auto sense whether you're plugged into a 110 or you're plugged into a 220. And we'll verify that here real quick. One of the beauties of this new style small machine, they're now starting to take even into an arc welder, stick welder. They're putting some of the software inside that allows you to not necessarily know the correct settings, but instead you can tell it, I want to use this size of rod, this type of rod on this thickness of material. And the machine will let you go through on the display and pick those settings. And you can trust the software engineers at Sefaspe have dialed the machine in very close to where you need it to be, or perfectly where you need it to be. Okay, so if you want to go into this 20 amp, again, you're going to take their plug, you'll marry it to the adapter that they provided for you. Okay, and then you can take this, put that in your, like I said, that's a 20 amp. I might not have said that, but in my garage, I have 20 amp service to the walls instead of 15, like a lot of bedrooms and whatnot. Okay. You still have your, I don't know why companies give these. I mean, these things are absolute poop. Like these brushes, I don't know. They're really, really bad. So you have your stinger clamp for your electrode, and you have your ground clamp. Now, ground is subjective to the type of rod. These are all DCEP, so these are DC power, electrode positive, electrode being this. So this would go positive for that, but there are electrode negatives. So make sure that if you're hooking up your machine, you know whether you're picking up a DCEP or a DCEN, and you would swap your terminals between an EP and an EN. Most of what you're going to have is probably going to be electrode positive, though. And that's what we're going to do. Is we'll plug this in. Let's look at the face here. Positive is this side, negative is this side. So this is a pretty standardized connector, which is nice because they're easy to replace. I'm like 5'8", so I'm going to say this is probably a 8-9 foot ground clamp lead. And let's see. Oh, I'm sitting here putting the wrong one. That's not the ground clamp. That's the electrode clamp. Okay. Same thing here. There's my head height. So that's about 5'8". Call it 9 foot-ish. I can measure it if you all want. Usually don't have your welder too crazy far from you though, right? All right. I have a couple pieces of scrap here. We'll look at that in a second. Power switch. Power switch is on the back. Turn the power on. Now, Sefaspe has done some software things with this to help newer people, newer welders out there. And so one of the things they tried to do in their software, and I'll go see if it seems to work, sticking the electrode to the part, and the part short circuits, and the electrode will, if you don't break the connection, the electrode will smoke off and turn red and burn off all of your coating. Sefaspe has a short circuit protection that if you do try to stick, it supposedly will stop and it won't allow the sticking to occur. They have hot start built into the software that's adjustable by you. They have arc force built in. So the start, what that does is the arc start part of it is it allows you to come in on your part and get an extra hot bang, get the arc going, hopefully not stick, and then continue your weld at your set rate using arc force to help fix your mistakes that you're making with your hand motion. So all of that's in here. Sefaspe has loaded this arc machine up with most all of the software that you could possibly want. Now, they have a one knob control, very simple, right? So it knows it's on 110 volt right now. That's lit up. It's on stick mode right now. Now you could tap this, and you saw that move down the arc start. Tap it again, goes into seconds, arc force in percent. Tap again, lift TIG mode. Tap again, back to stick. Now we're going to tap again, and so hot start, you can add up to a 10% hot start for how many seconds do you want it. You can go down to 0 seconds up to 1.0 seconds in 1/10 of a second intervals. So we're going to do a hot start at 0.3. Arc force, we can go up to 10% arc force. And that's, again, like I said, where you're not keeping your hand steady and it's trying to compensate. Okay, so tapping bounces through, as we said. I'm on stick, and it's on 3.2 millimeters right now. I'm trying to get through this without looking at a manual. I hate looking at manuals. So what is the amperage it'll get me to? Okay, so plugged into 110, it'll get me to 155. It should go down to 40. That's the minimum rating on the machine there. 40 is your minimum rating on the machine. Okay. So we'll go 70. Yeah. Okay. Now, let's see here. Throw the hat up there for a minute. I just want to throw a stick on it and see how it acts. I have a couple pieces of scrap I cleaned up. Clamp's nice. All these companies, you know, these are entry-level, low-cost welder machines. There's a lot of companies that make these. One of the places they always cut cost is on the ground clamp, right? So you can buy aftermarket or go to your local welding shop and buy a much stronger, wider opening with a true brass set of jaws or a complete brass clamp assembly. This is stamped tin with probably a tinned over steel clamp set, meaning they're not soft at all. I hate to say it, that's normal, that's typical, that's what you get. At the price point that these companies are offering these welders, I don't think you can fault them. They're not going to give you a $40 or a $50 ground clamp on a machine that they might be selling for, you know, $90 or $100, $200. They're not going to have, you know, 50% of the machine cost tied up in a ground clamp. You could do that later if you want. You can, you know, depending on how much you weld or what you get into. So Sefaspe, again, this is the ARC 200 Pro, and this is a synergy machine. And as you saw, I failed to figure out the synergy without looking at the manual, but that's fine. I just have it set up here. Where are we at? 70, 75 amps. I'm just going to strike an arc just to see what it does right out of the box without looking at the manual and without going into their settings. And then we can go ahead and look at the manual in a second and see what else happens. Okay, so it does start out pretty easy. If you've seen in my other videos, I'm not a professional welder by trade. I am not a stick welder in what I do good. But let's give it a run on some 7018. Too hot. We're going to cut it back. Throw another piece on here. Again, 7018. It's a pretty easy rod to use. This machine does start easy. Burns a 7018, no problem. Yeah. I would say definitely one of the easiest to start machines that I've touched, because that's always the bane of my existence with an arc welder. It's not once the arc's started, it's getting the arc started. That is always the challenge. As you saw, I was not having much problem getting the arc started. Definitely don't have a problem keeping that arc going once you're in there. So Sefaspe really has tweaked the software up compared to the machines I was testing last winter. That they got the start out, and I'm telling you, on an arc welder, the hardest part for people to learn is the start. It's generally easy to mess up and stick the stick to the part and get a short going. And this welder nearly eliminates that. You saw me stop and start multiple times. I was doing it on purpose. I dragged some weld, pull off, you know, and I was going left or right of the weld I just laid. I wasn't like tacking right into the hot end. I was going back and, you know, starting over at the start area there. And, you know, 9 times out of 10, I just touched down with a little bit of a drag and I'd get an arc going and I would go. Now what I'm doing is I'm looking at the book, because as I told you, I'm not a, I'm bad at looking at instructions, right? I'm sure like most of you, I open things up and I try to fight my way through first. And then if I decide that I have failed, then I will go ahead and look at a book. So to select electrode, it is suggested to choose diameter of electrode according to the thickness of the workpiece. Yeah, that's true. Turn on the power. Short press the knob to switch to the welding state. Set the welding current, the hot start current, arc force according to electrode, workpiece, and welding process. After the setup is complete, you can begin the welding operation. So diameter electrode, what they tell you for the diameter of electrode, to use, like for a 4 to 12 millimeter piece, to use a 3.2 to 4 millimeter electrode. The diameter electrode shall never exceed the thickness of the workpiece. When you're working with greater than 12 millimeter steel, you want a greater than 4 millimeter electrode, or sorry, rod. Long term, okay, so there's a 5-second hold for VRD. Now, VRD is a voltage reduction that tries to prevent you from accidentally shocking yourself. So if you look on the screen, we have stick welding, 110 volts, 69 amps, 2.5 millimeter workpiece. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. VRD. VRD just came on down here. So VRD was not active during that weld that we just did. Now we have VRD activated. I'm not sure under what situation I would not want the protection, the added protection of VRD. I'm not sure why it's something that you could select off, why you would need that protection taken away to enhance your welding process or something. I think that it's probably for old school welders that you know have that that mentality of, I never had VRD, I don't want VRD, I didn't ask for it, and I'm not going to use it. But if they want this machine, they want to have the ability to do a 5-second long hold and turn VRD off. So if that's what you need, I guess you can turn it off. Okay, so they have some fault indicators that can light up. One is like a thermometer. If the machine is overheated, overcurrent, or abnormal. There are error U, error H, error 0 displayed. If indicates that the device is experiencing an abnormality. Refer to page 8 or chart 8. Let's see what it is. Okay, problems during welding. EH is overheat protection. EU is over voltage or under voltage protection. And E0 is device communication abnormality, meaning that something inside the device is not talking. So there are computers at play now. And in today's world, everything has some sort of circuitry that has some sort of communication. Now, what's nice is Sefaspe also finishes out the manual. Let me show you this with a nice chart showing you different rods, different materials, and different recommended current ranges to go into with that. So that's a nice little feature that they have in the manual. What I will say is that if you need to be able to weld out on farm equipment, dump trucks, construction sites, things like that, really an arc welder like this is about your only option, right? To do that outdoor welding. What Sefaspe has right here is a machine at a very value price point that can plug into 110 or 220. It comes with the adapter to do that. The machine weighs next to nothing, about what a gallon of milk weighs. You could dang near put this in your glove box of your Super Duty. And you have the capability that you need to do the repairs that you need, or the assembly. Maybe you're working on wrought iron railings. Maybe you're, I don't know what you might be doing, but Sefaspe with the ARC 200 Pro gives you a machine that has tons of power. Like think about how small this is. It's a 200 amp arc welder, right? Like this could weld some significant material at 200 amps with a 240 volt supply, right? That's a significant amount of power in a machine that I'm picking up with my pinky. Like it's like amazing where we are today in the welding world. And thanks to companies like this that are putting out very value priced yet quality, with the software, with the features, with the protections, with the stuff to help the new users learn how to weld better and be more successful. You can look to a company like Sefaspe to get you there and just package it all up so nice where you have this easy to do. Here's the other thing I do want to tell you. Most all of these machines, Sefaspe included, they call it a 2-in-1, and the reason why is, while this is a stick welder, almost all stick welders are also lift TIG. This one is no different. So Sefaspe has the lift TIG hardware. Now, they didn't send it to me to show you, but you could remove the stinger clamp and you can go and run TIG with this. Now, you would have to have gas. How that ends up happening when you're going to do TIG on any of these machines, because this doesn't have a gas input, it doesn't have a regulator, any of that. So how that works is they sell you a TIG torch that has a nipple on the side right here that feeds your gas out to your TIG torch, right? And you have your regulator and all your controls on your tank so that you can TIG without running through the machine to do, you're not solenoid on and off. It's just going to be an on or off. Usually, a lot of them have a small knob that you can open the flow, close the flow right here off of the side. But this will allow you to do basic lift TIG if you buy the accessory kit for it that will allow you to do that, and you have to have your inert gas tank to do it. But otherwise, this single box solution, minus the electrodes that I pulled out of my boxes, you can take this, like I said, and learn how to weld, or if you already know how to weld, look how tiny, look how small, look how easily transported this would be. Take this bad boy out and let her rip. Make your repairs, do the jobs you need to do, and look forward to what Sefaspe has in the future, because things keep getting more advanced, smaller, lighter, more power efficient. The world of welders has changed a lot since I started 25 years ago using welders. My one machine over there weighs 300 and some pounds. This is like a gallon of milk. It's crazy that we've gotten here. In I'm 54. I'm not that old, right? But guys, do me a favor, like and subscribe. I want you to check out Sefaspe, and what I will be doing is in the description, I'll put all the specs to the machine. I'll put links to the machine. I believe Sefaspe was going to get me a coupon code. I'll put that in there also. You might be able to save a few bucks off. This is an inexpensive machine to start with, so you're not going to save a ton on it, I'll tell you that. I mean, something that's already almost free, you can't discount too much more. But this is not the first Sefaspe brand welder that I've played with. It is the best, the arc welder at least, that I've played with. I have my different opinions on different brands as to who does what in what realm. But as of right now, this is probably one of the coolest little arc welders that I've ever touched. All right, guys, thank you. Merry Christmas.